Hey, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well and ready for another big discussion because today we're going to talk about something really exciting for fans of Black Myth, Wukong. There's a brand new update on Xbox version 1.0.20.21 FIF 118, and it officially rolled out on September 10th, 2025. This patch has been highly anticipated by players who've been waiting to see how game science would handle the Xbox experience after launch, especially since we know that balance tuning and quality of life adjustments can make a huge difference in a game like this. So let's sit down and go through it together because there's quite a bit to unpack here. And I want to make sure you know exactly what's been improved, what's been fixed, and what it all means if you're someone who's currently playing or maybe holding out to start your journey with Sun Wukong until the game feels a little more polished. Now, I think the first thing that stands out is simply the fact that Xbox players are getting a major patch at this stage. After release, there were plenty of conversations online comparing the different versions of the game, and a lot of people felt like the Xbox build needed more attention compared to PC. The good news is that this update is evidence the team has been actively listening to feedback. Patches like this aren't just numbers in the background. They represent weeks of testing, bug tracking, and performance review. So when something like 1.20.2118 drops, it's not just a random string of digits. It's a marker for the effort to make the game smoother and more enjoyable. From what we're seeing so far, the update addresses performance stability, which is something players had been vocal about. Frame rate consistency is critical in an action-heavy game like Black Myth Wukong, where precision matters during boss fights and enemy encounters. Imagine being mid-combo or trying to dodge at the perfect moment, and suddenly the frame rate dips. Those moments are frustrating, and they take away from the experience. This patch puts work into minimizing those drops and ensuring that combat feels tighter. If you're on Xbox Series X, you're especially going to notice improvements in resolution scaling and load times, while Series S players are seeing a smoother ride as well, even if the hardware has to make a few compromises. Another big focus of this update is fixing bugs that were reported by the community. Anyone who's played RPGs or action games knows how small glitches can sometimes snowball into annoying experiences. Things like enemies not reacting the way they should, certain skills not triggering correctly, or quest progress getting stuck. These are the kinds of problems that players flagged early on, and the team worked to iron them out in this patch. It's really satisfying when you notice that moment in a fight or in an exploration section, where something that used to break the flow now works seamlessly. I also want to talk about quality of life tweaks because those often go underappreciated until you actually experience them. These are the small interface adjustments, the way menus respond more quickly, the clearer tooltips, the slight refinements to how save points and checkpoints are handled. For instance, the pacing between major encounters feels smoother now because the game does a better job at loading transitions and keeping you immersed. Those moments where you would have been pulled out of the world by a delay or a clunky animation are now less noticeable, and that makes the whole game feel more polished. On top of that, the patch includes some balancing changes. A game like Black Myth Wukong lives and dies on its combat system, and balance is key. Certain bosses were noted as being frustrating, not necessarily because of their intended difficulty, but because of uneven hitboxes or damage scaling that felt unfair. With the new update, some of these issues have been retuned so that skill, not technical hiccups, decides the outcome of fights. If you're the kind of player who loves testing different abilities or experimenting with combat builds, you're going to notice that encounters feel more rewarding. And I think that's one of the strongest parts of this update. It restores confidence that the developers are paying attention. Launches can be messy, and we all know that big AAA or even ambitious AA titles often come out with rough edges. What matters most is whether the developers respond. And in this case, game science has stepped in with meaningful fixes. Players can now step into the world of the Monkey King with fewer frustrations, and that's what keeps a community engaged over the long term. Now, let's step back and think about why this specific update is worth such a long discussion. Black Myth. Wukong is not just another action RPG, it's one of the most visually ambitious titles built in Unreal Engine 5, and it's rooted in Chinese mythology, which makes it stand out in today's market. Every patch is not only about fixing what's broken, but also about preserving that sense of wonder. This game thrives on its atmosphere. The forests, the mountains, the temples, and the surreal landscapes where you face off against legendary creatures. When technical issues interfere, you're pulled out of that immersive story. But when performance improves, you can really appreciate the artistry behind the game. There's also the fact that Xbox players have been feeling a bit left behind compared to PC. On PC, players often get patches faster because of how flexible the platform is. On consoles, certification and optimization take a little longer. So when an update like 1.0/20.21518 finally lands, it's almost like a milestone saying, yes, the Xbox version is being supported properly. That reassurance means a lot because it tells the community that buying on console was still a good decision and that your experience will only get better from here. Another angle to think about is how this sets the stage for future content. Developers don't just roll out one patch and then vanish. These updates usually form the foundation for further improvements and sometimes even expansions. By locking down stability now, game science creates the breathing room to work on new features later. Imagine the potential for additional quests, new difficulty modes, or even cosmetic updates. The stronger the core build becomes, the more likely it is that we'll see exciting additions down the line. Something else I really want to highlight is how the community contributes to updates like this. A lot of the fixes in 1.0.20.215118 come directly from bug reports and feedback. Players take the time to share clips, describe issues, and post detailed threads online. Without that level of engagement, developers don't always know what's affecting people on the ground. This patch is almost like a conversation between the community and the creators, and when you see the results, it feels like your voice actually mattered. Of course, no update is perfect, and we can expect there will still be some lingering issues. That's the reality of modern gaming. A project as massive as Black Myth Wukong will always need ongoing tuning. But what we can take away from this moment is that progress is happening and the Xbox player base is not being ignored. That's encouraging. And it makes me even more excited to see what the next update will bring. So if you're someone who set the game aside because of early frustrations, this might be the time to jump back in. You'll notice smoother battles, more stable performance, and fewer interruptions in your adventure. And if you've been grinding away non-stop since launch, then you'll feel that satisfaction of seeing the world you love getting better every time you boot it up. What's even cooler is the timing of this patch. Dropping it in September means that players going into the fall season now have a more stable build to enjoy. That's the perfect setup for people who might pick it up during upcoming sales or who want to sink some serious hours into it as their main game heading toward the end of the year. And let's be honest, updates like these aren't just technical fixes, they're morale boosts. They remind you why you fell in love with the game in the first place. They rekindle that excitement of exploring ancient landscapes, facing mythical creatures, and mastering the fast-paced combat. That spark of joy you felt the first time you saw the trailer or the first time you stepped into the game world gets reinforced when you realize it's only improving from here. So yeah, that's the story of the 1.020.21518 update on Xbox for Black Myth Wukong. It's a meaningful step forward, it addresses some of the biggest frustrations players had, and it gives us hope that future support will continue to elevate the game. Keep in mind that this is just the beginning. There's always another patch on the horizon, and as long as the developers keep this pace, the game will only get stronger. If you've already downloaded the patch, I'd love to hear about your experience. Have you noticed the smoother frame rates? Are the boss fights feeling more balanced? Did it fix a bug that used to drive you crazy? Drop your thoughts, because those stories really help paint the bigger picture of how well the update is doing.